Thanks for joining us at the Coral Laundromat Studio. If you haven't had a chance to get over there, well, this is going to be a great weekend to get the laundry done. And you might not want to even be staying there to get it done yourself. Just drop it off. You can do that over on Veterans Boulevard at 3620. You can drop it off, pick it up later on. So that way you don't have to worry about those grease-covered clothes, shop rags, diesel mechanic uniforms, or anything else. Drop off, pick up. And the reason you want to do that is because the weather. It's looking like a great day, and it's going to last at least for a little while. This weekend as a whole looks like highs in the upper 40s to mid 50s and a little less of a breeze with a lot more sunshine for sure on Saturday. Currently, we're at a high of 45 degrees for today. Light winds. Again, tomorrow we get up into the low to mid 50s. What a wonderful way to get ready for Thanksgiving. So if you haven't finished your outdoor projects yet, first of all, that's on you. So you're going to want to get started. And I can say that because I haven't done mine yet either. But you have the opportunity now. So get after it. And this weather is brought to you by Progressive Ag. They are your risk management specialists. And also, don't forget, if you have a moment, maybe today while you're on a commercial break here at the show, you should check out Tech Support Farm. You want to make sure that all of your computer work is going smoothly, that there's not someone who's watching your email, hanging you with ransomware or malware. And one of the ways to make sure that things are safe is to call Chris Sherman over at techsupportfarm.com. Joining me right off the bat today is Greg Hansen, and he is with Hansen Agri Commodities. We're going to talk about what happened in this week's commodity markets with Market Uncovered. Greg, where would you like to start?
Well, hey, China finally showed up and bought some beans for a change. So that's a positive.
Okay.
You know,
that's a positive. Did they buy as many beans as everybody thought they were going to buy? What's the skinny?
The number I'm kind of hearing right now is probably around that 2.5 million tons. They've agreed to buy 12 million tons between now and the end of January. Now, some of these beans are ones that they bought, back a month ago when they did the deal. So from that point till now, we're about 2.5. I think we're pushing that 2 million tons here for the week. We need to see more of this. The market has set back from where we were on the exuberation earlier in the week. I think the market did get ahead of itself a little bit. We are overpriced. When they bought it Sunday night, a lot of them on the lows. We are now today finally got back to those numbers. We had a pretty good push here after the run up. But are we competitive today? No, we're not. Brazil and Argentina have us beat. So really, people don't like to hear this, but we really need to have a little bit of a correction so we can get back down, find where the Chinese will step in and buy again. Then we can run back up again. And maybe we get a little more yo-yo action to this marketplace instead of everything just straight up. And with where we live on the globe, we really need to have these sales executed off the West Coast to improve our cash bids, improve that basis. So I'm willing to give up a little bit of the board in the short term so we can get a better basis number for us. And then we can always go run back up again and try to go sell near the highs or make new highs.
So if we're talking about soybeans right now, and I've got the few, let's say, in a bin, et cetera, I maybe didn't fill my garage like they thought they were going to do in Minnesota, is now my time to get out and sell a certain percentage, and you're probably not going to be able to tell me what percentage that is, but sell my comfort level and try to cover some costs for upcoming seed purchases, et cetera, just try to get ahead of this. Maybe I don't have to sell everything. What's your crystal ball telling you?
Well, I don't know if you'd want to have sold everything up till now. I've had a few producers tell me that their yields were so big that they sold the whole works, but shoot, that was $1 ago. So you've missed out on the rally. I do think you should have been selling on the rally and sell to where you're comfortable. If they're on the farm, I would prefer to see you just selling the future, leaving the basis open, waiting for some of these sales to get on the books. And we've probably sold them now, probably 40 boats or so. They got to buy 220. So, are we going to see the basis improvement on 40 boats? No, but if they start buying boat number 100, we should start to get a little bit of improvement as the exporter needs to buy those beans from the country, from the elevator, from the farmer. So it feels like there should be some room for improvement. But I also think that you don't want to overstay your welcome on this either. When the Chinese are done buying, there's nothing that says they will follow through and buy the next 25 million for the next calendar year. They've never lived up to an agreement yet, and I'm not going to hold my breath they live up to this one. We hope they do, but I don't think you can make your marketing plan say they will come buy all these other beans and I'm going to work around that. I don't think that's good risk management.
You can never. It's just not a guarantee, right? This is an open market. People, as far as countries, are going to be buying where they see fit. Unless you sign that agreement yourself and it is rock solid, there's not a guarantee in this. That's just the bottom line, right?
Correct. And like I say, right, the Chinese, they've agreed to buy beans, but they're not going to pay a premium if they don't have to. So I did hear some rumbling today that sounds like maybe we might see some washout of some of the Argentine sales and they might switch them to the U.S. here at some point. And that would kind of make sense for Argentina. They would prefer to crush their beans than sell the whole bean to China. I do think we need to give a little bit of a correction, get us a little more price competitive with the South Americans. And I think you will see the Chinese show up and buy the beans we've been chatting about. The long term we'll have to see. But like I say, short term, I'd like to give up a little on the board so we can get those sales on the books, get our basis to improve. And then I do think you'll get, another chance at a board rally after that. But, we've only probably got 60, 70-day window is kind of in my mind. I mean, we got 60, 70 days to watch the Chinese come in. And, boy, once they're done, I hope you got sold what you're comfortable with.
Oh, that's a great point. This is a limited time offer. If you think you're going to be sitting here in April making some of these decisions, you've literally missed the boat that was loading to take the beans.
That's kind of my fear. I mean, we hope the Chinese continue buying, but if they don't, then all you're looking at is the processor, and there's more than enough beans in Minnesota and the Dakotas to feed the processing capacity we have here. So we really need to make sure your beans end up on one of these shuttles and end up on the West Coast.
Interesting enough, you and I traded some information this morning as a futures reaction to what happens when President Trump makes statements about China. Do you want to explain a little bit of that? Because it looks like you've been watching it too. Anything you would share there with folks who are listening?
Well, there's a chart kind of going around, and it's in the industry, and what it was showing is different spots, usually near a low, when Trump would make a comment about China, whether it was, they need to buy our beans or hey, we've got the deal done. And every time he made a comment, we got a spike on the board. Didn't always hold. Sometimes we slipped back and went back to the lows again. But I think what that chart showed is not so much the power of Trump's voice, but I think the market has been looking for so long for something positive in the bean side. That every time he would come out and say, hey, China, you need to come and buy our beans, the mentality was, oh, maybe the deal's close. Maybe it's getting close. And we would bounce and then we would set back. And then he'd make another comment and we would bounce and we would set back. I think what that chart really shows is that we had nothing to trade and we were trying to grab onto any little thing that was a positive. Now, of course, the deal's done and we've had a run and we finally have seen them show up and buy, and that's the positive. Now, I think we did, like I say, I think we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, and we maybe need to kind of set back, get price competitive again. But I think there's going to be a little more back and forth, and we'll go down, find where China buys, we'll rally up, find where the farmer sells, and we'll maybe just chop around in a trading range, a much elevated range from where we were a month ago. But we should trade in a trading range until China's done buying wherever they're going to buy.
Well, I know that soybeans always seem to catch everyone's attention as of late. How about the rest of the marketplace? Anything there on corn or wheat that we should be watching this week?
Corn is strictly just a follower. I wish corn would kind of catch a bid here at some point and want to go, but it's really been lagging bad. And, I don't think it's necessarily that we don't have demand. It does sound like maybe ethanol margins kind of went a little negative here in the last day or so, but I think we got a lot of feed competition. You've got a lot of wheat in the bend that's feed quality looking for a home. You had a big milo crop down south looking for a home. The way we've been crushing these beans, there's a lot of meal looking for a home. So from the feed end, corn has a lot of competition. When you look at the balance sheet, the government they dropped the old crop feed residual. They did not drop new crop feed residual at all. And that might be a mistake. That number feels very, very high based on where the crop is, where our feed residual was last year, where these livestock herds are. It just feels overdone. My fear is if something doesn't change, they might have to drop that. That could raise our carry out. The one thing I do see that could be a positive on corn is when you look at the global balance sheets. Um, yeah, there's corn in the world, and there has been for 10 years. But when you look at who's got the corn in the hands of the major exporters has been slowly dropping every year. So if the U.S., if Argentina, if Brazil, if Ukraine, if one of the major corn exporters had a supply problem, things get really interesting really fast. And so while right now corn is just a laggard and just can't hardly follow the beans as like it should, if we find out, say, in a month that Argentina's got an issue, or we find out next summer we have an issue, things could get explosive on the corn end. And it does feel like corn is undervalued, but there's a lot of it around today. We find out someone has a crop problem, that changes in a hurry.
Boy, no kidding. And that's one thing that we have to keep our eye on all the time is where you watch any major shifts in weather and what that can do to those other markets and other countries.
Yeah,
Greg,
I mean, we've been watching the South American weather, and and Brazil's or excuse me, Argentina's on the wet side. It's hard to trade too wet. Brazil's been on the dry side. It's been in that Mato Grosso, Goiás area. It's been one of the driest starts in 15 years, but they always catch just enough rain to kind of kick the can down the road a little further. And with a weak La Nina, that's what they should see. So we are watching that area. Maybe in 2 or 3 weeks we have something to talk about that we can trade. We don't today. I think we got to kind of watch and see. But I mean, that could get beans and corn interesting if for some reason they dried out here over the next 2 weeks. Or the forecast.
You are a wealth of information, and people are really enjoying this segment that we've started doing on Fridays. If they have questions that they want to ask that may pertain to their particular situation and maybe talk about a little more business, where can folks find you?
Well, the quickest way is pick up your phone and call 507-338-6433. You can check us out on our webpage, hansen-ag.com. You can check us out on our Facebook page, Hansen Agri Commodities. If you have a question, you're just looking for an opinion, we can always tell you what we see and what we're thinking.
Well, tremendously appreciate that. And as this market discussion continues, we are going to hear the livestock market update from the American Ag Network. And when we return, we have the opportunity to visit with Darren Hefty of Ag PhD Media and Hefty Seed Company in South Dakota, and also Matt Thompson with Hefty Naturals. What are those things? Well, let's find out. Stay tuned. So happy to have you joining us today. And for any questions you might have, please give us a call on the JLA Insurance phone line. That number is 701-293-9000. I'm keeping an eye on my inbox that's powered by Superior Grain Equipment because you can protect your farm's future with Superior Grain Storage, Drying, and Handling Solutions. Check them out, superiorbins.com. And our live stream is being brought to you by Lighthouse Commodities. So for those who want to watch, you can catch us on Facebook, YouTube under WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus, and Acres TV. And that's where my guest today is joining me. Darren Hefty is here with Ag PhD Media, Acres TV, and so much more. And Darren, I hope you're having a beautiful day in South Dakota. Oh, I gotta hear Darren. His mic was off, so I
Oh,
didn't
sorry.
get to hear him.
All
There
right,
you
can you
are.
hear me now? All right, sorry about
Yes,
that.
sir. That's okay.
Well, thanks for
So,
having me
you joined me for our WDAY Radio Farm Show on November 5th, but not everybody got to hear you explain, all right, what's Acres TV? Because I do get that question from time to
today.
time, and it's sort of a jewel in the crown for you at Ag PhD Media.
Well, we're pretty excited about Acres TV because it's a collection of agricultural programming, and Ag PhD is just one show on that streaming service that has so much to offer for you. It's all free. It's all ag and rural lifestyle type programming, and we're just happy to be on another venue where you can just download Acres TV on your smartphone or your tablet, or you can go to watchacrestv.com and find it on your computer as well. And that's been really fun for us. I see all these other services out there, and you really have to pick and choose programs of which ones you can have on when your kids are around, that kind of stuff. Well, Acres TV is not that venue. If you want to have your kids or grandkids watching tractors run through the field and see what's going on with rural lifestyle, what a great place to go.
You truly have a family orientated educational resource because when someone has a question in regards to a product, piece of equipment, cultural practice, that's what Acres TV is there for, is to coach and teach. And I would imagine you're seeing a pretty big uptake in people consuming information from Acres TV.
Yeah, absolutely. There are just tons of programs on there. There's new programming coming on every week, and it's a great resource. And you're right, there are so many different people there that you can ask questions of or connect with, and that's what's really fun about today's day and age of information. I just was talking to a farmer that we work with in South Dakota, and he said when he first got started farming, way back in the 1970s. He said there just weren't any resources out there for him to turn to and people to ask questions of other than direct suppliers that had a little conflict of interest when he asked them, well, should I use more of this product or less? And he's like, I didn't always get the best advice. He goes, it's so fun farming right now because you can talk to people literally all over the world and certainly all throughout North America about how to do things different and what ideas they might have, what they're facing in their areas.
Speaking of having fun learning, for those of you who take the time to watch our live stream, and again, Facebook, YouTube, and Acres TV, Darren's background behind him is literally their farm before all the tents and equipment arrived for Ag PhD Field Day. So, Darren, that is a big day. Can you talk about what's coming for 2026? Because I'm hoping people are already thinking about their summers and where they want to be at the end of July.
Well, the Ag PhD Field Day really has become an event. It's a 1 day event. And you say, well, man, you got to set all these tents up and all this stuff. Yes, but we are worn out at the end of that 1 day because we expect 10,000 people or more each year to come to our farm for a big free event. It's really our way of saying thank you for all the support we've received over the years. That we do a lot of work putting together the best field day in the country, in our opinion. So we've got a lot of research plots that you'll see, and we take you through those a couple different times during the day, just to show you all the things that we're working on, all the new products, traits, techniques that we're trying out and just seeing if they have a good fit for us on our farm or where they might have a great fit for. Plus, we've got all the big equipment companies there showing off some of their new equipment. And honestly, the last half a dozen years, it's just been a technology show by many of those companies of, well, how are they doing things? And anything from autonomous vehicles to see and spray type technologies. It's been really fun to see what those guys have, and then just to walk from one of them to the next and compare different technologies that they're bringing on the market and see which one might be a better fit for your farm. So I encourage everyone, come to the Ag PhD Field Day. It's the last Thursday in July each year. One day event. It starts bright and early at 7 in the morning, runs till 4 p.m. It will be a fun-filled day for the entire family. Activities for kids, for spouses, and certainly lots of farm things to see too.
Well, Darren, it wouldn't be any fun if I didn't get a chance to ask you how things are on your farm. And as we continually hear the northward march of tar spot and southern rust, did you see any effects in your neighborhood north of Sioux Falls?
Yeah, we sure did. We saw tar spot and we saw southern rust here, but fortunately for us, it came late enough that I don't think it significantly impacted yields. Many farmers in the region had some of their best yields they've ever had, so that was really good. If they avoided, the wind damage or the storm damage that hit some areas, they turned out pretty good this year in terms of yield, anyway. On our farm, we had a really good corn crop, probably our best yielding corn we've ever had some tremendous silage, some of the best tonnage we've ever harvested. So we were really, really blessed this year and very thankful for that.
Well, to that end, what are you going to do different for next year? Have you started to think about that or made any changes in your plans for your corn crop?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about something else first because one of the big changes we're making for next year, we had a dairy that greatly expanded very close to our farm. And so their demand for hay and for corn silage has really changed our operation over the last few years. So 4 years ago, or five, well, 4 seasons worth of alfalfa ago, we had seeded some new alfalfa on a pretty good chunk of our farm. This is the first fall that we killed some of that alfalfa off, and we're going to go back into corn on that ground. And it's been kind of interesting. We did put on some dairy manure, and we're just excited to see, well, what's the difference after being out of corn and soybeans for a number of years, going back in. And then we've got some brand new alfalfa that we're putting in as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of year we have on those fields. And then we also had a little brotherly dispute on our farm. And I know you won't believe that, Bridgette, but Brian and I didn't exactly see eye to eye on this one. On some of his ground, he thought, I think our alfalfa's reached its peak. I want to take it out. And I still had some acres of mine that I thought, no, I got at least one more year in this alfalfa. So I decided to hang on and leave that stand because the stand is just great. And Brian took some out that I thought was too good to take out. So we're going to find out who was right and who was wrong.
I'm going to make a note about that to ask that question as the summer comes on. So,
Yeah.
all right, we want to take a moment to hear our news break, but Darren, you're welcome to stay because after our news break, we'll be joined by Matt Thompson with Hefty Naturals. So for those of you who don't know what that term means, Matt's going to explain it. So Darren, Hefty, thank you. You can stay if you'd like, and then we'll be right back with more discussion, what's happening out of Hefty these days. Once again, for those who are listening and want to ask questions, happy to have you. Call us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. Keeping an eye on that inbox, which is powered by Superior Grain Bins. And you can reach me, ag@flagfamily.com. And Lighthouse Commodities makes sure that you can see our live stream, which is on Facebook, YouTube, and Acres TV. And so today, joining me next is going to be Matt Thompson. He is with Hefty Naturals. So, Matt, when people see that name, they understand the Hefty seed brand, but Hefty Naturals brings up questions as to what exactly is that? So, can we start there?
Hey, Bridgette, thanks so much for having me on today. So, the Hefty Naturals business really for us is the combination of multiple biological products that are in the market that we have tested for a multiple of years that we feel like are some of the best in the industry that really fit parts and pieces of the business that growers may already be doing today.
When we think about biologicals, that's in some ways that's still a new term to folks. I realize we've been discussing it for probably 3 to 5 years in the industry, but some folks aren't familiar with what that would entail. So can you give us some examples of what that product lineup looks like, what it brings to the market for our crop, that type of thing?
Yeah, so we call it the naturals business, but ultimately the naturals business encompasses 5 major categories. They could be living microbes. So these are microbes that are naturally found in your soil that we are trying to concentrate maybe around the seed or in an in-furrow or maybe planter box application. We've got a category called amino acids. Amino acids the plant naturally makes during the photosynthesis process. They're building blocks for proteins, and how the plant ultimately communicates energy is via amino acid production. So there are products in the market that we can feed back to a plant with critical amino acids that will help the plant with stress tolerances such as heat and drought stress. We've got a category called plant growth hormones. This is probably our largest category. We've got a product called Megagrow. That's a patented glyphosate safener, and one of the categories that I like to deem the herbicide tax. Anytime a grower sprays a herbicide on a plant to kill a weed, unfortunately, the tolerant crop still has to spend a lot of energy to process and metabolize that herbicide. And products like Megagrow and plant growth hormones in general can help that plant speed up that process to use less energy and minimize the herbicide tax. We also have a category called the organic acid space. This is, as your soil humus breaks down, it breaks down into humic and fulvic fractions, humic and fulvic acids. So we can concentrate that and put that back into a plant to get reactions out of growing more roots or developing more fine root hairs. And then the last category is probably the most important, the water treatment space. If we're dealing with a customer that has chlorinated water, chlorine's number one job is to kill microorganisms to make it safe for you and your family to drink that water. If I have a living organism that I'm trying to incorporate to put back into that plant, obviously I can't mix it into a chlorinated water source. So that product is likely dead before it gets to the field. So there's a lot of hoops and a lot of education around the Naturals brand. I think that's probably what we're known for more than maybe brand specific is, when customers work with us, we more so ask the questions around understanding, are they going to get everything they're going to get out of these particular products before they use them?
So, Matt, when I was listening to you, you were talking about just a couple of areas where you really shine. Like you said, we're talking about those changes that can happen with chlorine in our water and what it does. Also, what's happening with as we spray some of these herbicides and we don't want to lose effectiveness. Is that the fastest growing area in biologicals, or is there something else where you're seeing a very rapid adaptation of the biologicals?
Yeah, I would say for us, from an adoption standpoint, anytime that we mix with a herbicide or fungicide pass, the grower's already making that pass across the field. It's, an add-on to that tank. If you can show value of increased efficacy or a yield response by being in that pass, it's much easier conversation to have. But in general, I would say probably the fastest growing market from an application standpoint is that planter box space. Maybe for your customers up in the North Dakota or Great Plains region, still a lot of those are using in-furrow. They've got the in-furrow technology because they're putting on a row starter. But for us, when we go into the I-states, when we get into Nebraska, when we even get into the southern half of South Dakota, a lot of those customers no longer have in-furrow. So the planter box space, or what we would call the talc replacement space, has been probably the fastest growing in general across the market. Biggest concerns, though, that we have that is proper application, right? If we don't properly apply a planter box product on seed, customers probably not going to get as big of a success as what they may or may not get by running in furrow. So there's still some hoops. There's no silver bullet in this market, and there's a lot of marketing companies out there that are promoting their product as the next big thing. But if the grower doesn't apply it right or use it in the right situation, probably not going to see the return on investments that they're probably getting marketed towards.
Well, when it comes to this biological space, it feels a little bit new, even though it's probably not. But you're likely finding that through your sales team, more education is helpful. Remembering that we can't just leave products in a cold pole barn for the winter, that some of those things are literally a live material that can die in the jug, etc. So how's that going with some of the education that needs to happen with folks?
Yeah, so I mean, the first 3 pages of what we have in our Hefty Naturals guide is what we call the do's and don'ts of the different products, right? So we want to make sure that if a grower is buying a living product, that the first question our agronomy team is supposed to ask is, what is the water source that you're going to mix this particular product in? We have solutions. If a customer has chlorinated water, which is probably more common down here than it is up in your neck of the woods, but if a customer has chlorinated water, we've got a product that for pennies on the acre will take chlorine, convert it to chloride, makes it safe for the plant, makes it safe for the biology that we're trying to incorporate. But there's other issues, right? So if a customer is adding a certain zinc into the tank with our row starter, if it's an ammoniated zinc or a citric chelated zinc, that's even worse than chlorine. And the natural disinfectant from back in ancient Roman times was copper. We still have customers today that are incorporating copper into their water source to minimize algae growth in large storage tanks. So, we got to be cognizant about not just chlorine, but other components that may be getting mixed into the tank. And it's simple things that, we don't think about, right, as we're doing it in the heat of the battle, but we've got to make sure that we're asking the right questions of what all is going to be put in the tank when we mix these particular products, because the last thing we want to do from a brand standpoint is sell a product that's dead before it gets to the field. Customer sees no response at the end of the year when the combine goes through the field. I would argue it's probably our fault for not educating that grower around the do's and don'ts of the brand. And that's really what I've tried to build our team and our success around is being that education model first in the field.
That's huge because exactly what you're saying. We've got to get the education with it, but also, okay, I'm going to liken this to when you're in the kitchen, right? You're making your favorite recipe, and in your mind that you always put onions in there. But because that's just table stakes in your head, and you're like, well, doesn't everybody do that? You forget,
Right.
and you don't tell the next person they have to do it. That's what you're trying to get to when we talk about what's really going in your tank. I actually need to know everything so we can make the best educated decisions for what's happening on your farm, correct?
Yeah, and there are probably 2, maybe 3 products in our portfolio that I would have the confidence to say on a broad term can be applied on broad acres. Mega Grow being one of them. That's a significant market for us. There's a few other brands that are like that, but overall, the 20 some products that we have in our portfolio, they really fit a niche area. They really fit a specific part of the market. And for some of these biological companies that are coming out of the market and just making these blanket statements that these products fit in a wide array of application, I struggle with that. And we spend a significant amount of money on a year basis doing contract research or independent research, doing internal research, and trying to test and validate these products in the market. Because again, the last thing we want to do is sell a product to a customer and the customer doesn't have a good experience with something that came from the Hefty Naturals portfolio.
Matt, this has been really helpful. Thank you for that. Now, if folks are interested in learning more, can they go to your individual stores? Should they check it out online? What's the best recommendation?
Yeah, so we're up to 50 locations now in 10 states, and obviously we cover a significant part of your geography. So our locations are ready and accommodating for any customer to walk in. But if they want to do it more on their personal level, the FTC company website's got a ton of information. We actually just uploaded our newest Hefty Naturals guide to the website here this past week. That's available. You're going to see me in a lot of winter meetings, a lot of meetings with Darren and Brian as we go across our stores here over the course of the next 45 days. And then as we get into the month of January, we kick off all of our Ag PhD events. So education is huge for us. That's our big thing we do from December till March. And it becomes a long road for guys like me over the course of the next couple months.
Well, all right. Keep your traveling shoes on, a suitcase packed, and drive safe, Matt. But thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Awesome. Bridgette, thank you so much.
All righty, folks. Check of the weather. We're going to take care of headlines that are going on in the ag industry right now, and then we'll be right back to finish those things up. Some headlines that are going on right there in the ag industry. Well, let's share a few of them right now. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to soy foam, which for those who are listening this morning on Bonnie and Friends, Bonnie asked where it's produced. It's produced in Georgia. But soy foam has been earning awards and favor with all sorts of fire departments across the U.S. because it is made with a soy flour, not the forever chemicals, the PFASs. And so with the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council, they are now offering more than 40 different fire departments soy foam donations. Locally, they're going to Elbow Lake, Fergus Falls, Henning, Herman, and Wendell fire departments. It's safe. It is a wonderful way to use some of our soybeans that are grown in this area, and it's completely compatible with foam inductors and aerating nozzles that are used, especially in our volunteer firefighting departments. Join us on Monday when Angie Johnson is here from NDSU. She's our farm and ranch safety specialist. Angie is going to help us out talking about RF-. It is training that is being put on in conjunction with NDSU Extension for our rural fire departments. And there's 3 trainings coming up in December. Your department may want to get in on these free courses, and Angie's going to help us share more information about them. Excited to have her be a part of it. Also, NDSU has their winter crop production seminars starting. These are online. They're usually about an hour long, done by Zoom. They're free. They are hosted by extension specialists such as Brady Gettle, Joe Eichley, Janet Knodel, Frayne Olson, and others. And they'll be starting on December 3rd. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, boy, that's a ways away. The reality is December 3rd's here pretty quick, folks. Let's be paying attention. So December 3rd will be a discussion on soybeans, December 16th, corn. And as we get into the new year, we will have further discussion with sunflower, dry beans, and canola. Chobani, well, we know them as the yogurt company, but they're introducing a new limited edition coffee creamer, cookie butter creamer. Now, Addison, I have never seen you drink a cup of coffee, so I don't know if this applies to you. Is cookie butter creamer something you're really after? Do you care?
I'd try it, but
Okay.
I couldn't guarantee I'd like it.
So I drink tea. So this is useless information to me, but for those coffee drinkers out there, and I know they outnumber me pretty heavily, this might be something you want to try out. It is a seasonal creamer, and it is part of a release and larger trend within the dairy industry to bring more dairy products to the forefront of people's shopping carts. And this is a way to attract buyers with the variety and the novelty, and the cookie butter creamer might be a way to do that. That's from Chobani. You did hear in the news break that there is an outbreak going on that started in Texas, and it's covering some of our southwest states, and it is equine herpes virus. So this is in horses. There are neurological cases that are being found, and it has triggered urgent warnings from veterinarians across Texas and many surrounding areas. Clinics, the veterinarian clinics that is, are reporting that several horses returning from early November events, including the WPRA finals in Waco and the competitions at the 377 Arena in Stevensville, have already shown severe and rapidly progressing clinical signs. Some owners are reporting fatalities. And a lot of times these are happening in very high dollar horses. So keep exposed horses isolated for the next 14 to 21 days. They need to be kept at least 30 feet from non-exposed animals and handled under strict quarantine. That herpes virus in horses, the equine version, is also being found in states moving further north. So we are going to keep a close eye on that here in the state of North Dakota. We see more indoor arena riding, more stables, and we're going to have to be cognizant of that as this could spread from animal to animal. And it's happened through nose-to-nose contact, shared equipment, and shared water sources like water tanks. Monarch Tractor Company, an autonomous electric tractor startup in California, says they may need to lay off more than 100 employees or even shut down. This is according to a company-wide memo, and it comes after Monarch Tractor was already cutting some positions at their corporate facilities. According to former employees who've spoken on the conditions of anonymity, they say that right now that pursued goal of finding a tractor optional autonomous tractor is getting tougher and tougher to do on their market size. Stay tuned for the Jay Thomas Show. He's coming up next. Have a great weekend.